Hey, it's James from Marketing for Restaurants here, and welcome to episode 110 of Secret Sauce, the restaurant marketing podcast, cutting costs with online ordering for your restaurant.
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you got a lot out of last week's episode. We spent a bit of time going through some of the variables that you can have when you put together an online ordering strategy for your restaurant. Which is the product? Do you have the throughput capability in your restaurant? How is the packaging sorted out? Are you going to do pickup only? What is the real cost of delivering it? We're going to talk a lot more about the delivery component today. Before we get into that, though, I want to talk briefly about a product that I saw in Vietnam and one other Asian country. It might have been Thailand as well. Coke introduced a coffee Coke version. Now, the interesting thing was I did a little bit of research and it's actually available in Australia, but only through selected places. So some restaurants and pubs. I actually haven't seen it in Australia. I saw it in Vietnam and I thought, wow, that's probably pretty cool. And I bought a whole heap of cans of it because it tastes epic. Now, my question is, what could you combine coffee with? I mean, coffee and Coke, it's kind of a no-brainer when you think about it. Interesting thing is that no one had actually done it until now. So what is it that you could be combining coffee with? And don't stop there. What other things could you be combining with the products that you've got to create a new product? Now, it might not be a mainstay. It might not be one of the staples of your menu, but it gives you something to talk about with your customers. It might be enough to push them over the edge to get them to come in that extra time. Really, really have a good hard think about menu innovation because and look, coffee, Coke, that's really easy to do. What is there that you could be doing from a beverages point of view? We talked in our restaurant trends episode about how beverages were going to be a big thing. And I think that there's just so much more work that people can be doing from an innovation and creativity point of view when you're looking at the menu. And combining is one of the easiest ways to do that. Just take two products that you've probably already got in the kitchen and put them together to create some sort of new product. Now, back on to online ordering. So we've spoken, I think we've covered about everything as far as right up until delivery. And delivery, you know what? This is the hard bit. This is the bit that's really, really tricky because it means that you're now going to go away from producing food and creating experiences to actually becoming a logistics company. And so this is where some companies have seen some opportunities. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about some of the online ordering options that you've got if you're going to use a third party and when you would or wouldn't use them and how you can actually do it yourself. So there's two kinds of camps when it comes to the third parties. There's the order aggregators and then there's the delivery aggregators. So as the name suggests, the order aggregators are the companies that will take the online order for you. And they'll have their own website. So their value proposition is to restaurant customers. And they will say, type in a suburb and we will show you all of the restaurants that will deliver to your address. Pretty simple, not a lot of tech involved with it, and actually really quite high margin because of the fact that, so in Australia, Menulog charge 13.5% tip. We think that that's going to go higher. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Just Eat, I think, is charging 13%. Let me know if you what you're being charged by Just Eat. They're effectively taking 13% for really very little customer service. They spend quite a bit on marketing. That marketing is to build their brand and is to drive people to use their app or to use their website, because that's the important thing that they want to do. They want to build up that database. And they view the customer as being their customer. So restaurants just get relegated to providing fulfillment for it. So if you want pizza, here is a list of places that will do the pizza, and then it can be delivered out to you. They're just looking for someone to provide a pizza, and they're clipping the ticket on the way through. We know that they view the customer as themselves because they say in their terms and conditions that the privacy rules mean that they can't share the customer's detail with the restaurant. So, and it's interesting. So in Australia, we've seen Menulog implement a new phone system mid last year where the phone number of the customer is now no longer provided to the restaurant. So if you want to call a customer, what you do is you call Menulog, you type in the order number, and then they'll connect you to the customer. Now, they've stopped doing this because what was happening was people were writing down or collecting the mobile phone numbers and then doing SMS marketing to their customers. And Menulog doesn't want that to happen. The power of Menulog and Just Eat and the other order aggregators is the ability to move large groups of customers around. We call it the circle of death. So imagine that you've always wanted to own a restaurant. You see a place that's vacant and you think, you know what, I could do a restaurant there. People always say that I cook great steaks or great pizzas. I'm going to start a restaurant. And, you've got the cash. You either borrow it, you've got some sort of money set aside. Hint, it's not going to be enough. And so you negotiate a lease and next thing you know, you're starting a restaurant. Now, this is really exciting. You've got to worry about the kitchen. You've got to worry about the menu. You've got to worry about hiring the staff, training the staff. So you're going to do all of those things. Then opening night comes. That's really exciting, except there's one thing that you've forgotten. You forgot to do the marketing. I hate it when people do that. You forgot to do the marketing. So there's no customers. That's all right. The friendly Menulog guy's there and he says, do you need customers? Yes. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a 30% off discount and we're going to send it out to all of our customers in the local area. And we're going to get a whole heap of customers coming in. Wow. It works amazingly. There's a whole heap of customers coming in. And now you're running the restaurant that you always wanted. Well, it's almost the restaurant that you always wanted, but it's super busy and super exciting. There's heaps of new customers coming in. They are loving the food. This is exciting. This is really, really exciting. Now, a month later, money's a little bit tight, but it doesn't matter because there's heaps of orders. The orders are flooding in. You are doing so well. This is absolutely amazing. This is the restaurant that you always wanted to run. Well, almost a restaurant that you always wanted to run. 2 months later, wow, money is ridiculously tight. There is no money. Let's go through it. Oh, hang on a sec. There's the 30% off coupon that we're running. That is probably killing it. So you know what we've got to do? We've got to stop that. So you talk to your local Menulog rep, you get that turned off, and then there's an issue. None of the customers come. So you're no longer the cheapest food available. There's other restaurants out there who are running 30% off coupons, and Menulog has moved those customers to someone else. Or, this is the other thing that they'll do, is that it may be to the customer or it may be charging a higher commission to you. So they do variable commissioning, which means that you might appear at the top of the list. So, and Menulog's got a really vested interest in this because they want to be able to charge as high a commission as possible. So either through customer offers or the variable commission, you're now no longer getting customers, but you're getting a few customers and they're kind of profitable. You're still being charged the 13.5% commission, but there's nowhere near the volume now. And so it's very quiet and you're starting to panic. And then you run out of money, you're going to close the doors. So you close the doors, you make good, as your lease says, you take out all of the stuff. This is really quite heartbreaking. And then the restaurant, your dream, there it is, empty. Tomorrow, someone walks by and thinks, you know what? I always wanted to start a restaurant. He talks to the real estate agent and we're back on the circle of death. In 3 months' time, he's going to open with no customers. This is the real power of Menulog. Menulog was purchased by Just Eat for $865 million because they have that really, really powerful relationship with the customers. They used to do the loyalty campaigns when if you order X number of times, you get the X plus one order for free. They stopped doing that because it made it hard to move the customers around. They couldn't get the people who being charged the higher commission. They couldn't get the customers to them. So they actually got rid of that. We know in the customers so we have a loyalty discount for our customers, and you can see the effect that it has because more and more customers order more and more frequently. One of the things that we did that I'm actually really quite proud of is our restaurant loyalty graph, and we spoke about that a few episodes ago. Have a listen to that, but effectively you can see a breakdown of all of the customers, whether they've ordered once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, I think 5 times, then 6 to 10, 11 to 19, and then 20 plus, something like that. It's amazing when you look at a customer's data and you can see the fact that how many customers that they've got in that 20 plus bucket. You can see customers who've spent $1,000 or $2,000 with a customer and just think, wow, that's awesome. Fun fact, we also do that for bookings as well, so our free online restaurant booking system, and we're scoping out this week the ability to be able to see the view across bookings and ordering. No one else in the world is doing that. That's a really cool thing. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That'll appear for our customers, it'll appear in the Marketing Central, hopefully not too far off. Now, we talked about Menulog being purchased by Just Eat for $865 million. This is in part of the fact that the strength that they have with those relationships. People eat 3 times a day. We know that Menulog is really, they're quite interested in breakfast, opening up breakfast as an online ordering concept. I'm not too sure how big that's going to be, and they're working aggressively with lunch as well. Our tip for this year, so Just Eat recently, they've had a change of CEO, or the CEO's left, or was he fired? We're not too sure. And that was because one of their shareholders has put some pressure on them with the speed with which they're moving towards evolving their business model. And so one of the things that I think we're going to see is that commission go from 13.5% up to 15%. It's probably the easiest thing that Menulog can do, and Just Eat in the UK, to increase the profitability of the company. Now, and that's the order aggregator business model. That's how those guys sort of work. Once again, I don't think that there's 13.5% commission in there. We know that some people are paying significantly more. That's a big drama because we're finding that you're getting people who are cutting the portion size of the food that they're shipping, or they're using ingredients that aren't as good to try and cut back on the cost to try and get that money back. Flip side of that is that when you're a restaurant that's not using an online ordering aggregator, when you've got your own system, then you're kind of off the grid. You've got customers who are prepared to pay a better price because they're getting better quality of food. And this is what we think is going to be a big trend. Less restaurants doing it, but making more money with happier customers. I'm lucky. I'm not super price conscious. So I order from the restaurants that I think are going to give me the best food. Now, that's not the entire marketplace. Menulog definitely cater for those with all of the coupons and all of the offers that they run. Obviously, that Groupon by stealth effect can work quite well, but generally, that's the restaurants that are struggling, and they're the ones who are much more likely to go out of business. And you do see a bit of churn in that space. I think that the longevity, the sustainability in a restaurant business is when you're owning that customer database and you don't have those significant costs. Now, if you thought 13.5% was crazy bananas, let's just talk very quickly about that. You're probably spending, 30% on food. In Australia, it might be 45% on wages. So you're at 75%. There's no owner's profit. Your lease, we're going to put another 10% in for that. We're at 85%. You've still got probably another 15, 20% maybe of all of the other costs. You've got your marketing costs, your legal, hiring, all of, power's becoming a big issue. So you've got other costs in there as well. And then Menulog's wanting to take 13.5%. And the way I look at it is that you start the restaurant, you buy the food, you cook the food, you hire the staff, you train the staff, you do all of the things that are required to run a restaurant and all of the other things that are required to run any other type of small business. All Menulog do is take an online order. That's all they do. And they want 13.5% for it. I think that that's absolutely crazy, particularly when you've got your POS systems or you've got things like Frollo that are able to do it at a much cheaper price. Now, the issue with Just Eat, Menulog, your order aggregators is that you're still required to do the delivery. So there's a cost involved with that. Now, this is where Deliveroo and UberEats came along. And they said to their value proposition to the restaurant is, we're going to do the delivery for you. So they moved into higher, more upmarket restaurants. They moved into more restaurants. They opened up the market for online ordering for restaurants who weren't prepared to do deliveries. They've created a new market there. And they're really driving this concept of the fact that you don't want to go and eat. You can have it at home. You can have it delivered to you. Now, there's a cost associated with that. And generally, it's about 35%. the first thing that you should be doing if you're dealing with any of these guys, whether it's Food Panda, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, the first thing to do, and they'll tell you that everyone's getting on board with it and it's a massive opportunity and you got to be in it. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. They're going to tell you that. And a lot of people just sign up because they think that that's the case. They're doing a lot of work building that story. It's not actually the case. There's some businesses out there that are doing very, very nicely. Thank you very much. It's interesting because they've actually driven the people who are going, well, I can't afford the 35% fee, but I could be doing pickup only. And so we're seeing the rise in pickup only. This is one of those little trends that's starting to take effect as restaurants want to look at the profitability, open up the market that they can address. So people who want to eat at home, they're not going to get all of the people who want to eat at home, but they are going to get the people who are prepared to pick it up. And when you look at the pricing that Domino's, there's a lot of people who are prepared to pick it up because of the fact that their delivery fees are so high. We know that. So the order aggregators have remained quite strong in regional areas. And the reason for that is that they have a two-sided market. So people like Just Eat have traditionally operated in a two-sided market. There's a restaurant and there's people who want food delivered. All they've got to do is match those up and then they can collect their 13.5%. Cool. Uber Eats, Deliveroo, the delivery aggregators, they operate in a three-sided market because they have people who want to eat food, have it delivered, people who cook food, that's you, and people who want to deliver food. This is where it gets really, really interesting because you've got to have the three in balance. You've got to have enough people who want to order food. You've got to have enough people who are prepared to prepare the food, and you've got to have enough people who are prepared to deliver it. And don't forget that delivery is very peaky, i.e. Friday and Saturday night, super busy, super hard to get people to match all of the logistics that are required to do that, to feed all of those hungry mouths on a Friday and Saturday night. And so what they've done is they've come up with this concept of the independent contractor. Well, they haven't come up with it, but what they've really done is a lot of work in putting into the fact that they are independent contractors. Now, it's interesting. I've spoken to a few Uber Eats delivery riders and Deliveroo, and it reminds me of a story which is one of the HR best practices. And that was, there was a company that this was a few years ago. It was a garbage company. And so what they needed was people to run along next to the trucks, pick up the rubbish bins and throw them in. Now, it was quite a big physical workout and it was hard to find people. There was a guy, and it was the biggest thing that was holding this guy back. Now, obviously, all of these people have lost their jobs because now trucks pick the bins up automatically. But it was holding this guy back from growing his business before they had that technology. And then he thought, I wonder if I could hire people from gyms. People who work in gyms, they're really keen on working out. They're really keen on physical fitness. So what he did was say, run 20 kilometers every day, do an upper body workout, and I'll pay you $200. Now, these are people who are going to the gym. They're not getting paid any money. All of a sudden, I can do what? I can get paid to work out? This is perfect. Oh, you know what? In fine print, you're going to have to be dealing with rubbish. The upper arm workout is you're going to lift bins up and you're going to put them into the truck. But no one really cared. They were running long distances. And they were getting an upper body workout. This is an awesome cardio workout, and they're getting paid to do it. So he was able to find an almost unlimited stream of workers because it really appealed to that demographic. Now, if you're a bike rider and you'd like to do, like a 200, 400, 500K, if you're in training to really build up your stamina around bike riding, then you're probably putting in some serious kilometers. If you can put in those serious kilometers and get paid by Uber Eats or Deliveroo, then this is perfect. This is a really good opportunity. You've got time that you were on a bike anyway. Now you're on a bike. There's a little bit of mess. You got to pick up the food and then you got to deliver the food. But apart from that, you're still riding and you're getting paid to do it. Is the pay great? Nah, it's not. But this is time that you were riding anyway. So for them, it's fantastic. For the people who want to work in those really busy times when there's lots of work, it's fantastic as well. But there's not 40 hours worth of work in there. It's probably really 6 or 8 hours. So you've now got this really interesting thing where they say it's an independent contractor. And the only reason they're talking about an independent contractor is the fact that if they're not an independent contractor, if they're an employee, then there's a whole heap of minimum work provisions that need to be met. So there are requirements around workplace health and safety. There are requirements for the minimum amount of time that you can get someone to come in to work. And there's obviously a minimum wage that you need to pay them. If they're an independent contractor and they fall below that minimum wage, then as a business owner, they've made a poor business decision if they're not prepared to have that minimum wage. Because as restaurant owners, the vast majority of you know that there's no law against underpaying the business owner. That happens far too often, doesn't it? And so the real innovation for these delivery aggregators is the ability to pay under the award wages. And I don't think that that's anything that anyone should be proud of. Now, some restaurants see it as a big opportunity because of the fact that they think that everyone's getting on board with it. They don't have to do the delivery component of it if they are servicing the delivery market. And so this has created an interesting dilemma for companies like Just Eat, who only did the order aggregation. And really, this is the online ordering version 1.0. Just taking the order, there's not a lot of smarts behind that, not a lot of work to it, which has meant that restaurants have struggled to justify the value that they're getting, particularly when the POS system or Frollo can do it for them, taking that order online. 10 years ago, when e-commerce was a lot harder to do, definitely there was value in it, but technology's moved on and there's a lot of alternatives. And this is why we've seen, so particularly in areas where you're able to service that three-sided market, so you've got the delivery riders, you've got the restaurants, and you've got the people who want to eat the food, they have taken the heart out of these businesses like Just Eat and Menulog. And what you're seeing now is the move towards hybridization. So Menulog in Australia has just started doing delivery riders so that they will now do the delivery for you. Obviously, they're charging a lot more for the privilege, but this is an effort for them to try and counter the amount of market share that they've lost from UberEats and Deliveroo. Grub Hub has a hybrid model as well. There is some value to be had from it. Of course, the big thing is all of these companies see the customer as their customer. You don't get the contact details, and that makes it very hard. Fundamentally, you've got no idea who it is that you're dealing with. You may have an idea of their address if you're doing the deliveries. I'm not sure. Does Uber Eat provide? They probably don't provide a delivery address for you. It's really just going to be a name and an order. And I think you don't want to get anyone in between your relationship with the customer, because I think for any business and for any restaurant, that relationship with the customer, that is where the real value is. And it's the difference between being a price taker and a price maker. You are going to take a price. If your delivery company decides that they're going to increase the commission to 40% or 45%, they are able to do it. You're going to be at a significant disadvantage because you don't know who any of your customers are. You can't go direct. There is no way for you to be able to respond to it. You are just a price taker, not a price maker. Compare and contrast to the customers who are building up their own customer database, then of course, they're completely outside of this. None of this impacts them. I was talking to a restaurant owner last week. He is about to clock up $250,000 worth of orders. So he's also using Menulog. We always maintain that it's good to have multiple channels so that you can get new customers. The thing that you should always be doing though is having an order direct and save sort of campaign, whether you slip a brochure in there and get them to order directly from you. There's plenty of ways that you can do that. But as he has gone from using Menulog entirely for all of his online orders, now it's gone down to virtually zero, to the point where he's thinking of getting rid of it. You can see that he's getting almost to the point where he saved $30,000 in the space of 18 months. That's a significant amount of coin. And he's doing what we think is best practice. He's spending a little bit on himself. He's given himself a bit of a pay rise, a bit of it in employing more staff so that he's got more time to work on the business, not in the business. And lastly, he's spending a bit of it on marketing. And that marketing is getting him more online orders. So it's just a virtuous circle now. And this is the thing that I think is really powerful. When you're building that sustainable online ordering model for your restaurant, you need to be thinking about this. It's very hard to do that when you don't control all of the levers in there. One of the questions that we get asked all the time is, should you be using Deliveroo or Uber Eats? Which one's better? I've got to tell you, if I was a restaurant owner, I would definitely be using Uber Eats. So Uber Eats' long-term plan is to go with self-driving vehicles. I suspect that commission may actually come down because of the fact that their delivery riders are going to lose their jobs and it'll be like self-driving cars or something along those lines. And that's probably about 5 years off. Deliveroo, they're the guys with the dark kitchens. They're the guys who are asking all of the questions about how to run a restaurant. I can see in the not too distant future, they will be putting their own staff into those kitchens and they will then compete. And the thing that makes it really powerful for them, and they'll make a truckload of money out of this. If you're going to buy shares, I'd be buying it in Deliveroo, because if they're successful, they're going to be a multi-billion dollar company. What they'll do is, rather than offering your Indian food, they will have people who will cook that Indian food for them, potentially as an independent contractor. So what they might be doing is, for every vindaloo that you serve up, we're going to give you 75 cents. It's up to you how many that you do, but it's a big opportunity for you. They potentially might have multiple brands operating out of the same location, multiple cuisines, but I think their long-term strategy is to get rid of restaurants in its entirety. They're pushing towards making lunch and breakfast a delivery option. You have to be really careful, I think, because you don't want to be building up a database of a delivery aggregator that is going to cut the restaurants out of it. And they're already talking about providing that service. The dark kitchens are up and running now. The big risk, of course, though, with all of these partners is, what's the long-term sustainability like? I think UberEats has probably got the best long-term strategy, as long as Uber, the parent company, as long as they survive long enough. And we don't know, because they're a private company, we don't know how profitable they are. They're sort of racing to get rid of their drivers because that's going to make things a lot cheaper for them. And same with UberEats. If they can get rid of the riders, then things are going to be a lot cheaper for them. They're going to cut a massive part of their costs out, and that's going to enable them to deliver meals a lot more cost effectively. For both of those companies, well, all of those guys, Foodpanda as well, the independent contractor model is coming up under more and more scrutiny. There's more courts, more countries are really looking at this. And I know in Australia, there's a state government that's running an inquiry now into what does this mean for work? Because governments around the world really don't want to be encouraging the increase of these jobs where it's really just subsistence. It's below minimum wage, where some fancy financial footwork or legal footwork has been done to cut the minimum wage to below what is the requirement, the wage that's being paid. I think that this is going to be a big problem, and I think we're going to see more and more of it. The fundamental thing that I always talk to regulators about when I'm talking to them is the fact that you've got a restaurant who's doing the right thing and they're employing someone to do the deliveries. So they have minimum requirements. So it might be that the person has to come in for 3 hours, and they might have to be paid a minimum wage. Well, they will have to be paid a minimum wage, and there'll be potentially benefits as well. They might get superannuation, sick leave, potentially, depending on how they're employed. So you've got all of those costs. And then you've got UberEats who can come along and they can employ someone who might only get one delivery. That person might get paid $6. Now, if you've got a delivery driver who's not doing anything else, and for some reason, say it rains a lot, or say it's really hot and, your orders go down dramatically, you're going to have one person in there who's going to do that one order, and that's cost you $60 because he's got to be there for 3 hours, as opposed to Uber, who've only paid a guy $6. Now, he might hang around, he might not, who knows? But it creates a very, very, very uneven playing field for the small restaurant operator who's trying to do deliveries. And I think as more and more light and education is done with regulators, there's going to be more regulatory interest in it. And we're seeing in lots of countries, court cases coming out where it's actually getting quite unpleasant for UberEats, Deliveroo. I'm not sure if Grub Hub has faced any of these. It'd be interesting to know what the state is in the United States as well. I think that this is going to make it quite interesting. Obviously, the delivery thing has put significant issues behind Just Eat. I think in Australia, they're coming from a long way behind as they try and build their delivery offering. I think in the short term, Menulog's going to put their prices up to 15%. I think in the medium term, I think there's a more than fair chance that they're going to close down in Australia. I think it's just too unprofitable. I know that we're picking up customers all the time for Frollo, and if that continues, if the POS guys continue doing it, there's lots of people who are snipping at their heels, lots of people who think that 13.5% is just absolute madness. I think they're going to really struggle with long-term viability of the business. Look, only time can tell, and I could be completely wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. But when you look at it, they're coming up against some very, very big competitors who've got a lot of experience in that space and a lot of market share. And they're moving from a very profitable business model. I mean, I wish I was taking 13.5% for every order that we were, because I know how much work we do with them. It's not a lot. I wish I was getting 13.5%. I'd be driving a Ferrari now. So they're moving from a really profitable business model to a business model that is a lot less profitable, in fact, potentially unprofitable. They've got all of this regulatory risk. It's going to be a very interesting space to see. So when it comes to cutting costs, obviously the first thing that you can do is use a free restaurant online ordering system or use your POS system. Use something like that. I think that you don't need to be using an online order aggregator anymore. I think those days are kind of past. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use them entirely at all. What I am saying is that you shouldn't have them on your website. You should be driving customers to order direct and save. That's the key thing that you can do to cut those costs. If an order aggregator brings you a new customer, then they're a new customer. If you provide that new customer with awesome food, you need to provide them a way that they can deal direct with you, whether it's going to be a loyalty discount, whether it's going to be some sort of pricing opportunity, whether you're going to give them slip a few extras into their order when you see it come by. There's lots of ways that you can do to move those customers to the right on the restaurant loyalty graph. And I think that that's the critical thing, because the whole job is to extract as much value out of each customer. Now, if an aggregator is taking 13.5%, those customers, on the face of it, may be unprofitable, particularly because of the fact that you're actually going to be doing the delivery work as well. So have a think about that. Now, the other thing is, have a think about pickup only. Pickup only can be hugely profitable. It might be a 10% bump in your revenue. And if it's a 10% bump, think about this. Let's just say, round figures, you're doing, let's say, $50,000 a month. If you can do a 10% increase by going from dine-in only to offering pickup to your existing database of customers, if you can increase revenue, that's going to be an extra $5,000. Now, you're not going to be increasing any front of house staff, because all it is really is just packaging up an order. You should be able to manage that. In the kitchen, you may not be increasing anything there as well. So you're going to have your food cost. If your food cost is 30%, then you're looking at, so $5,000, $1,500 in food cost. That's $3,500 that you're better off each month. If you can do that all throughout the year on average, that's under $40,000 in extra profit. Now, how many businesses are there that are marginal that become moderately profitable? How many moderately profitable businesses are there that become quite profitable when you add an extra $40,000 to the bottom line? For a restaurant doing that kind of revenue, that's going to make a massive difference to profitability. And this is what we're talking about. Give the customers a reason to interact with you more frequently. For those dine-in customers, and this is what I'm saying, there might be a lot more loyalty in your eat-at-home customers, the customers who are going to pick up from you, than you get out of them with the dine-in. I'm really excited as we talk about really being able to analyze some customer data to see what the difference is between dine-in and online ordering. For restaurants that are doing both of those, we're now going to be able to start providing some visibility across that. And I think that there's going to be some fascinating insights to come out of it when you look at providing sustainable hospitality business, and sustainable from a profitability point of view. That's it. We've covered a lot of ground in the last two podcasts with online ordering. I think I've covered everything. If I've missed anything, I'll throw it into an upcoming episode. One quick request, if you can, leave a review on iTunes. It really does help us to get the word out there. It helps us with the rankings, and more customers are listening to the podcast. More and more restaurant owners as well. It's interesting, for every one that we've got listening to us in Australia, there's about 5 people in the US. So that's exciting, and that points to the growth of how our little family is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's always really exciting when we start picking up restaurants overseas. So that's about it. I'll include a link to Frollo so that you can have a look at it. I'll also include an image on the restaurant loyalty graph. I think that that's a key differentiator. We're doing a really big lot of work around helping you to visualize how your restaurant's going. And I think this is what a restaurant 2.0 looks like. Having access to those data tools, having access to your customer database, and being able to do that really point and shoot type marketing, that is really important. That's about it. Hopefully you'll have a busy week and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.